Hey everybody, I'm Diane Conklin with Complete Marketing Systems, and I am a lesbian business owner, and certainly that makes me a member of the LGBT community, and I'm happy to be here today.
Hello, Out Bosses. Rhodes Perry here, and welcome to this week's episode of The Out Entrepreneur, a weekly podcast where I get to interview today's most inspiring LGBTQ bosses crushing it in business. Now, before jumping into this week's show, I wanted to extend a virtual invitation to our weekly office hours. Now, these are taking place every Friday at 2:30 p.m. Pacific. We've opened up our office hours to all LGBTQ plus business owners looking for some additional support during these very unprecedented times of COVID-19. If you have some extra inspiration, please consider joining our mailing list for the invite. You can find all of the info on how to register for the calls at outentrepreneur.com, and I really hope to see you there. So with that, I want to open up today's interview with none other than Diane Conklin, who is calling all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. So Diane, welcome to the show. Really excited to have you here today.
Thank you, Rhodes. I'm excited to be here and excited to share with your listeners and see if we can't make a difference in some lives and some businesses.
Oh my gosh, I think we will for sure. And just for a little bit of background for our listeners, so Diane is the president and founder of Complete Marketing Systems. For more than 25 years, she has helped business owners take their companies to 6 and 7 figures and beyond. She also leads Queer Profits, a company that specializes in helping LGBTQ plus business owners, us, intentionally grow and scale our businesses. Diane, like I said before, is based in Atlanta, Georgia, and she is an active member of her city's LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce and the local human rights campaign community that's there. So Diane, there's a lot to fill in the blanks because you've been doing some amazing work with small business owners for quite some time. I wanted to just open up for you to share a little bit more about Complete Marketing Systems and Queer Profits and, what really makes your businesses unique.
Yeah, so Complete Marketing Systems got started some 25 odd years ago now. And interestingly enough, I've been working for other people and doing, a lot of the things that we do now. And just decided, my partner and I at the time, just decided it was time. And so I lived in Florida at the time, was sitting in the pool, and all of a sudden I had this idea of how we were going to do it. And essentially, we started off doing really information marketing kinds of things. And we still do a lot of, done for you marketing. We do event planning and event marketing and a lot of direct mail, believe it or not. There are still people who invest money and put stamps on things and mail them out in our digital world that we live in. And, it's grown and changed and kind of modified over the years. But, the sort of the real basis of what we do in a variety of different ways is we help businesses go from wherever they are to where they want to be, to 6 figures, 7 figures and beyond. I've got a couple of multi-million-dollar companies that we've worked with and helped grow to that point. And to me, it's just about that, right? It's about that piece of getting in and making a difference. We do a lot of stuff with strategy. We do a lot of things with implementation. And my heart has always been in our community. And my partner of 20 years was in the military. And so that was a little bit of an issue trying to, finagle, how do we do that with, and her, protect her career. This was before Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And then my last partner had 3 kids. And so it was a little difficult because she wasn't completely out of trying to finagle things. And so now that I'm single again, and by the way, looking, just in case anybody's out there is also looking.
You do a little matchmaker.
I decided that it was time to launch the Queer Profits piece of the business. And that's really about me focusing in and helping other LGBTQ plus business owners to really expand and catapult from where they are to that next level. And again, with a variety of things. The thing I love about what I do is that I don't have a particular niche area that I stay in. My niche is diversity, and I love being able to take things from a lot of different industries and putting them together to make a very customized program for each individual business owner that we work with.
I think what you're doing is really, really interesting and it's complicated, right? Because you are looking at different elements of a business to help it grow. and it's all centered around marketing. And one of the things that I read in your longer bio was the success rate that you had working with some companies right out of the gate in 90 days and really taking them to a place of growth and scaling at a pretty rapid pace. Like, I know that there's a lot of there's a lot of steps within that process. Walk us through one of those scenarios where you're working with a great client, they're doing all the things that you're recommending, and they're able to reach that, whatever that kind of revenue goal that they had. Maybe it's 6 figures, maybe it's 7 figures, maybe it's beyond. But how do you take them from, just getting started to 90 days later, really, having these indicators of success show up pretty consistently?
Honestly, Rhodes, interestingly, the clients always give me credit, and I always give them the credit because they have to implement and they have to do the things. But I will tell you that the key, so I'll tell you the key, that's really the key. The key is twofold. It's them implementing, and it's also them having the attitude of they understand they have to invest. That's the only way that's going to work in that short time period. So I'll give you a quick example. And you can go look this guy up if you'd like. His name is Casey Graham, and he lives here in Atlanta. And we met actually, and I think we were in Baltimore. I had just got off the platform after having won a Marketer of the Year competition. 750 of my peers voted that I was the best out of the top 3 that the company had come up with. And this bald, very energetic guy taps me on the shoulder and he says, "I want to talk to you. I want to start a continuity program. I don't know exactly what that means, but I don't have time right now." And off he went. And I'm like, who is this guy? And so quickly, just a quick story, it's a longer story than this, but sort of the condensed version is that he was working with small startup churches here in Atlanta. And he was driving around in his little red pickup truck, trying to help these startup churches. And he said, I heard this continuity thing and I want to do it. And I said, it's not going to work. He said, why not? I said, well, first of all, the churches have to get permission to spend the $97 a month. Second of all, it's no money's going in the person's pocket who's spending the money. I said, this isn't going to work. And he said, well, I'm going to do this with you or without you, Diane. I'd really like you to work with me. And I said, okay, but I want you to know that I have some reservations, right? Because I'm always honest with people about what I think. And so we put together a program, and literally without a big fancy website and without, any big to do, we launched a webinar, and he got on and interestingly enough, he still says to me today, those were the words that changed his life. He was going to call 200 of his contacts and one-on-one and try to sell them into this $97 a month thing. And I'm like, no, let's just do a webinar.
Yeah.
And so literally on the webinar, I think he sold 39 people, and we did a $79 special. And then within like 3 weeks, he had sold 79 of those and went on to bump the price to $97. And interestingly enough, so he was at 6 figures in 90 days and in exactly 1 year. And again, people don't believe this, but I was there and I know it actually happened. He was at $1 million. Yeah. And he ran that company for 5 years, had somebody buy him out for a multiple 7-figure buyout. He took a year off to decide what he wanted to do. And now he's running another company where he's actually helping people who have continuity programs to collect on the bad debt that they have from people who don't pay and people whose subscriptions, get lapsed.
So I have a bunch of questions from that. And I guess my first one, and I think this is related to this moment that we're in right now. So if people listen to this 10 years from now, and right in this moment, we are surviving a great pandemic. We are living through COVID-19, and it's impacting all areas of our lives, obviously including commerce, business. And we've got a lot of folks tuning in who are very, very concerned about what this means for their livelihoods. And there's something that you said in your story that really stood out for me, which is someone trying to go through their Rolodex, maybe however they keep their contacts, 200 people, one-on-one calls, and you very simply introduced a technology solution, which is a webinar, right? To kind of communicate, some good information and an offering. And I'm wondering, from what you're seeing and how you're helping clients now, Are you getting more business owners coming to you to say, Diane, you have a track record of using technology like webinars or, other ways of engaging people virtually. Are you helping those businesses pivot what they do best to kind of an online community? Are you seeing that trend, or is this a little premature?
No, it's definitely happening, and I think it's going to happen even more. For example, I have clients right now who had live events scheduled that we're now switching to virtual, what I'm calling virtual online events, using things like Zoom and that sort of thing. Even before we were in the middle of this, about 2 or 3 months ago, I started to see what was happening, right? Part of being a good business owner or a responsible business owner, I'm not sure what the right word is, but for me, part of being a good business owner and a good consultant, coach, leader, I guess is the best word I can come up with, is looking at what's happening in the world and looking at trends and looking at historical graphs and seeing what's coming. And so I said to my coaching clients, I said, look, guys, this is happening. This is coming. What do you need to put in place right now? This was 2-3 months ago, right? In January, to be in front of this. To be able to serve your clients in a way that makes sense, because this is all changing. Everything that we know right now is going to be different. I didn't know exactly what it looked like, but I knew that things were going to be different. And so, for example, one of my guys, he's a caterer, again, here in Atlanta, and he is now he's got a URL for it, but he's now doing curbside cuisines, and he's doing deliveries for big meals as well as, family size as well as individual meals. And it's going really, really well because he got out in front of it. He didn't wait until now to say, oh my gosh, what do I need to do, to change now? And then it take 3 weeks to happen. And now we're at the end of the pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, more things are going online. And I think the big thing that I see right now, Rhodes, is the need for community. People are feeling, I think, very isolated, especially if you're single and you live alone, right? It's tough some days. And so that isolation factor and having the ability to reach out and to see somebody else and to communicate, even though we can't touch, I think is a big piece of what people are looking for right now, is that sense of belonging, that sense of community.
Yeah. I completely agree with you on the community piece. And, I gave the announcement at the beginning of this episode. One of the ways that we're trying to give back through this show is to have these weekly office hours where really it's talking through, life, being a part of the Rainbow family. And, what unites us in this community is that we're either running businesses or we're interested in starting our own. And this is definitely thrown a curveball for a lot of folks who've been operating businesses that haven't traditionally been online, nor would they ever be online. Like the example that you used with the curbside cuisine, this is restaurant. There's someone creating food rather than in a restaurant now, being savvy enough to offer, the catering services as kind of a pickup. And probably I would imagine using the internet to advertise that, right? And so I guess like a follow-up question to this for you, Diane, is thinking about, you work with many different sizes of businesses. And I'm wondering, is there an advantage for smaller businesses in this moment where small businesses, it feels like, there's fragility here, and that, there's many businesses just getting started, or they just typically have been small. But where do you see a silver lining for smaller businesses as compared to much larger organizations that employ hundreds of thousands of people that might give our audience some inspiration here?
I think you're absolutely right. I think the advantage that we have as small business owners, however you define that, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody who has, less than 50 employees or team members, doesn't really matter. I don't think how much they make, but it's that piece is we have the ability to be flexible. We have the ability to move very quickly. We have the ability to make changes and test things and try things and see if they work or they don't work on a scale that fits us, right? That allows us to do those things and not have to put out hundreds of thousands of dollars or even thousands of dollars, right? And so the advantages that we have is that we're malleable, we're flexible, we can test and try and do and see if it works and then scale very quickly because we don't have the bureaucracies and we don't have, all sorts of people that have to say yes or no to something. We can make those changes and do those things and try things very, very quickly. And if they work, then we can move quickly to make them work on a bigger scale. Yeah. And we have the flexibility when this all flushes out. I'm not going to say, I don't think we go back to a quote normal. I think there's going to be a quote new normal, which, by the way, and we can talk about this if you'd like, I think is going to bring out a whole plethora of new opportunities for people and new business opportunities. But when we go back to that, we now have the choice. So use the caterer again, right? He still has his main catering business, but I think he's probably going to maintain this delivery piece of his business as well, because he added a second income stream for when things go back to the new normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm seeing that a lot. Some of my listeners know I'm a little woo, so I do a lot of yoga, and my local studio, which has solely been a brick and mortar operation, very successful, has taken all of their classes virtually. And so they now literally have a global audience. And it will be interesting to see, like you said, whatever happens once we get through this, things will be different, right? And so I think businesses such as a brick and mortar, like a yoga studio or the individual caterer that you're referencing, I think they'll realize there's additional potential through this kind of virtual commerce. And so that potentially is a silver lining. Something that you had said about the advantage of being a small business, and I wanted to ask you about this as well, is this ability to be nimble. And I think it's this balance, right? Because we all know, serial entrepreneurs who today, they might be in the catering business and tomorrow they're now in information technology, right? And so my question for you is on this piece of being nimble, the balance of, consistency helps build trust and legitimacy in the business that you have. And then also, the ease of testing, changing, iterating. Like having coached so many business owners, like how do you help people strike that balance of kind of sticking to what you know and still being able to be creative in that space, if that makes sense?
Yep. So here's the motto that I've come up with for these times right now. And I think it answers this question perfectly. It's do what you do best.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that you stick with catering. That doesn't necessarily mean that you stick with, a quilting business. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're the yoga master. Mm-hmm. But what it means is, what do you do best? And so I'll give you an example. I use myself as an example. What I do best is problem solve. Mm-hmm. I'm a really good problem solver. And so people have come to me during this time, I probably haven't given the same advice to two people, right? But I can problem solve and I can look at it and I can say, okay, where do we need to go? Where do you want to go? I can ask the questions and I can very quickly say, here's the direction. Mm-hmm. That's always been my strength.
Yeah.
My strength isn't technology, but I have people who that's their strength, right? And so I have the ability to even work within there, but knowing that that's my strength. And if I can stay in that line of do what you do best.
Yes.
I think that's just the key right now. And so don't go crazy, mm-hmm. right? Thinking, I'm going to go start this brand new plumbing business, or I'm going to go start, and I'm in information technology right now. It's like, whoa, where'd you get that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do what you do best. That's just been my motto. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not so there's a lot that I can't do right now, but there's also a lot that I can do. And that's what I've tried to focus on.
I love that. I think you've named the show too. Do what you do best. I think that motto really helps us kind of hone in on the things that light us up, right? And the things that we're good at, and the things that sometimes, like being a problem solver, oh my gosh, like the world needs more of you, right? And it's a skill that probably, just comes so easily to you that I think for folks listening, there may be skills that you have that you take for granted just because it comes so easy to you. But you have to remember, just because it comes easy to you does not mean that that's the experience of everyone else on the planet. In fact, mm-hmm. right? Like there's a lot of people that struggle with solving problems or information technology or yoga or whatever the thing is. And, that goes back to your motto, Diane, like do what you do best. And in this moment too, like you said, like you're not a medical doctor, I'm not a medical doctor, right? So I'm not necessarily going to step forward and be on the front lines of serving people with COVID, right? Though, take stock of what you do best and how can that be of service right now? Because I think that's just the right thing to do. And it's also, from a business perspective, that could be the next great idea, of testing and changing that's still in alignment with what you do best, right? And so I wanted to go back to something that you said, Diane, about, kind of like the crystal ball that you have before you and thinking about, things will definitely be different once we get through this pandemic. And from a business perspective, you had kind of foreshadowed, there are business opportunities that we just haven't seen. We're starting to get glimpses of in this moment. What are some of those new kind of businesses or industries that you imagine popping up after we get through COVID?
Yeah, well, so here's how I know this, right? It's not so much that I have a crystal ball, but look at what happened after 9/11, for example. Think about we have a whole new government agency, right? Wrong or indifferent, let's not go there, called the TSA, right? That didn't exist before 9/11. We have different ways that our bodies get scanned when we go to the airport. There's something called Fly Clear now that actually did exist, but exists differently now. So there's all sorts of things. The way we pack our bags, how many bags we can take, all of these different things are new and different. And those are just a few directly at the airport, right? Mm-hmm. So we know that things are going to be different after this. And so let's step back and think about, okay, well, what's happening right now? Look at something as simple as everybody's concentrating on washing their hands and hand sanitizers. And then people are complaining about their hands being dry. Well, somebody's going to come up with a way to have some sort of, maybe it's ultrasonic, I don't know, right? But there's going to be a way to cleanse your hands. There's going to be an ultrasonic cell phone cleaner, because one of the dirtiest things we carry around with us all day, right, because we're constantly putting our hands on, is our cell phones.
Right.
All of these different things that are happening right now. I mean, the need for masks and ventilators and the companies that are switching over. Think about, so here in Atlanta, there are at least 2 companies that I know of that have changed over from distilleries to making hand sanitizer, right?
Yeah.
Talk about a company that made a quick shift, right? Mm-hmm. But to your question about what's going to change, so let's think about how people now want to be hands off. So I had to, as I shared with you before we went live, I moved in the middle of this nonsense, which was a ton of fun, and you did too.
Yeah.
So I had to go to the bank to get a cashier's check. And as I walked in the bank, I'm watching people on the machines, right? The teller machines, and getting money out and processing things. And I said to myself, someone's going to come up with a way to make that non-touch, to make that, imagine walking into your bank now and clicking something on your cell phone or saying, arrive or come up or whatever. And there's going to be this virtual number pad that you plug in all of your stuff, because nobody wants to touch that after 9 million people touched it, right?
Yeah.
Credit cards, although we have Apple Pay now, who wants to stick their credit card in that machine where, 37 people just stuck it in there ahead because there's no way to sanitize it? And to make it worse, now when you get gas at some of the gas stations, it's actually holding on to your card. Mm-hmm. So all of these things just, and again, I'm not some psychic. I'm not some, I'm just observing. Mm-hmm. I'm just watching what's happening. I'm listening to what people are talking about. Yeah. All of these things are going to change, and they're going to change. My guess would be in the next 6 to 12 months, you're going to see some amazing technologies come about because of what happens. The food service industry is going to change. How do you now have a buffet that people are, breathing on and all, even with the covers, you know what I mean? Like even with those covers, all of that's going to change as we move forward.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's, I think that this is a moment too, where like, what is that change? Do you want to be a part of the change, and do you want to help create the the future, the world that you want to move into, because I do think it goes back to kind of choosing, trust and kind of having good rapport with our community, which is so important, and being mindful of the fear, and kind of like moving into a world where, which direction do you want to go in, and not that it's always a binary choice, right? But, kind of doing what you do best, adding value, and my message to this audience is try to be a positive light and use your talents for good, right? And that there's a way to continue building thriving businesses. So I think that this is awesome. And I think it's trying to make sense of what we're moving through right now. And we're still trying to figure it out. So I think just continuing to have these conversations is so, so important. So kind of going back to what you were saying about the importance of community too, I really, really encourage folks, if you're feeling isolated, if you're not sure, if you're struggling to find kind of this virtual community, something small that we're doing that hopefully is, something to look forward to every Friday is offering and extending these office hours to everyone. So again, that's at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time here. So Diane, this is really, really helpful. I'm wondering, in the context of your own business right now, what kind of changes are you seeing in this moment, and how do you anticipate kind of how your work will shift in the midst of all of these massive disruptions?
Yeah, well, I'm in the middle of a shift right now. I had an event scheduled for May 7th and 8th here in Atlanta, and it's now an online, as I'm calling it, a virtual online event. And so, thinking about the technology and what I need to shift and change, and how, I had somebody who signed up who said, when I said, look, we're not going to be able to do this live, sent me a message and said, I don't know how I feel about this virtual thing. And I said, well, I'm not sure how I feel about it either, but it's kind of where we are right now. And so I can assure you that you will get just as much attention as you would have gotten in the room. It's just going to be in a different format. I'm going to cover the same things. And so it's that piece of that fear that you have to deal with a little bit with the people that you work with, because it is an unknown and it is different. And anytime we go through change, it's intimidating sometimes, right? We don't like change. Even though it's the only thing that's constant in our world is change, we don't tend to like it. And so that's one thing. I think, I'm certainly doing a lot more Zoom and phone meetings now than I've done in the past. But I think part of it is yet to be seen. And I think, again, how we do things. Are people going to continue to send, will people send more mail or will they send less mail? I'm seeing a difference even in the emails that I'm getting. I'm seeing a lot of people, a lot more advertising and a lot more sponsored ads on Facebook, for example, and the other social media venues. But I'm seeing less people in my email box, less frequently, which to me says, ooh, if there's less people emailing right now, then I want to be in that media.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Say more about that. So if there's less people emailing you, and I'm assuming clients and people that you do business with, being in the media, so going to social media in anticipating that people are on social media just trying to get news, or what do you mean by? Yeah.
So when I say the word media, I just mean wherever that is, right? Is it newspaper? Is it radio? Is it social media? Is it direct mail? That to me is the media piece. And so, right, people are spending more and more time. See, we as business owners we have to think, because I'm not spending any more time on social media. I'm not spending hours in front of the television on Netflix. I'm working every day, right? I'm doing what I always do because I work from home. Mm-hmm. And if you're a small business owner and you do that too, then it's like you're not relating to what you're hearing. And so we have to take ourselves back. And so what I've done is looked at this and said, people are what are they doing? They're spending more time on social media. Some people are working out more, right? We're seeing more people on the roads, more people buying Peloton bikes, fitness equipment. You can't buy a dumbbell or a weight plate, for crying out loud, anywhere right now. And 3 months from now, you'll be able to get that stuff for people be giving it away, right? When things go back to normal. But It's looking at where people are. People are spending way more time on social media. So the marketers have said, okay, if you're going to be on Facebook, then I want to be where you are. I want to be in your Facebook, your stream. So I'm going to do paid ads. I'm going to be in your Instagram ads. I'm going to be on Twitter. I'm going to be in all these places where you are. Well, but they've moved away from email, which I find is interesting because if people are online, they're also in their emails.
Yeah.
But they've moved away from that. And so for me, when I see things like, okay, I'm getting less emails, okay, I'm going to go there, because all you're doing by adding to the Facebook ad, for example, if everyone else is doing that, you're just adding more clutter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's way easier for me to stand out in an email right now, because at least I'm getting less of them. And in talking to my colleagues, they're seeing the same trend.
Yeah. Okay.
It's easier for me to stand out in an email right now than it is a Facebook ad. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to go away from where the masses are going, because it's easier to stand out in this other area right now. I don't want to be one of many. I want to stand out in the area where I am. And there's still plenty of eyes in email. You check yours every day, right?
Oh my God. Yeah.
At least one.
Yes. Yeah. No, I love what you're saying on that. And it's kind of like going to the, as you said, the clutter or the less noisy places, and trying to, add value. And I think, I'm a fan of email, in general, whether it's kind of, talking about something that my company is doing, or just kind of connecting with people. So it's good to hear that maybe there's less competition in those spaces right now. There's something else that you said in that I think is really valuable in with your marketing experience. I'm wondering if you could say a little bit about, this kind of the avatar, of like, if we're small business owners and, many of us are working from home or in our offices, like our experience of the world is really different than potentially our clients or the people that we want to work with. And so how do you get into the worldviews of the folks that you serve? Like what's a way that you step out of your own way to, listen in and get curious about what people need?
Well, you said the key word, right? It's listening. That's part of it, right? And it's listening with the ear of, not from my point of view, from my perspective, but listening from their point of view. And I didn't say point of view, I said point to view. There's a difference, right? Mm-hmm. So listening to what they're saying and the things that they're talking about will give me an idea of where they're coming from, right? And sometimes, and I jump into this sometimes more than I should, but I sometimes take the contrarian perspective on things, because I'm not making things up, right? I'm not being contrarian just to be contrarian, although if you ask former partners of mine, they probably would tell you differently. But I'll give you a quick example, and it is business related, and in some ways it's not. I got into a little bit of a debate, I guess. The other day, somebody was selling a box of masks for $50, and a box of, I think they were the latex gloves, I think it was $20. Mm-hmm. And the people in this particular group were just irate. Why are you making money during this time on healthcare products and blah, 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 blah. Well, I didn't think $50 for 50 masks was outrageous. I thought it was a pretty decent price. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. There's this overarching view by some people that you shouldn't be making money now. You should be giving things away. Well, let me give you a different perspective. Money is energy. Money has a flow. Money has a pattern. If you don't keep money moving, our economy is going to be in big trouble, right? The world's going to be in big trouble. Mm-hmm. And so my point to her was, well, are you going to the grocery store and paying for groceries? Well, of course. Well, then why don't you think you would have to pay for hand sanitizer or masks or gloves? No one's taking advantage of, but as a business owner, I have responsibilities too, right? I have overhead, and I have, maybe employees, and I have, I got to eat too, right? And so, but people don't think of it from that perspective. And so once I got over the fact that I was triggered, right, from that perspective of what in the world are you thinking, right? You don't understand how business works. Then I went back and I reread the thread, and I said, okay, what's the underlying piece here, right? And so I tried to, again, listen or reread the thread from a different point of view. And I looked at, okay, where are these people and who are they, and where is this coming from? It's coming from fear.
Yeah.
And when you understand that, then the question becomes, how do I manage that fear for them? How do I go in and provide something that potentially at least eases some of that?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I think for me, that's the thing that I try to look at and I try to help my clients with. I had a conversation this morning with somebody who's a event audio and video guy. And he's right now, he'll be fine once the things get back to normal. But I mean, he's got zero business right now because all the events are canceling and rescheduling. And we were talking about this platform that has become available where you can, not only can you live stream it, but people can actually go and like network with other people at the event remotely, and they can go to the vendor booths and the tables. And someone has created this very interactive event sort of live stream. I don't know if it's software or what the right word is, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, that's really cool. I had an idea long before this happened, and unfortunately it's a major undertaking, but people are doing, like, we go to these big workplaces, right? The WeWorks and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
My idea was, how do we make that virtual? How do we make it virtual so that we can work virtually and yet be together? How do we have a virtual space where we could go out and have lunch with other people who are also working remotely, right? And it's a multi-million dollar project to put this kind of thing together. When I talk to some developers and things, and I still love the idea. I love it even more now. Just not sure how to get it done.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But you have the idea, right? And it's just a matter of kind of, it's the how is the fun stuff that gets filled in along the way,
Yeah.
and it definitely speaks to a need. I mean, so I'm a part of a co-working community, and we've got folks now that just do co-working virtually, and it's definitely not at the scale or the kind of detail that you're probably imagining, but it's just, it's simply using Zoom, and you're doing the Pareto technique where you kind of work for a certain bulk number of minutes, like 45 minutes or something like that. And then you come back together at the end of that for 15 minutes and connect. And then you go back and you do it for like 3 hours. And I'm seeing more people do that and being even more productive than just kind of having a full day alone in your office, without that kind of human interaction. So it's interesting to see ways that people are showing up in this kind of virtual space. Something that you had said, kind of going to that fear piece in the initial question that I had of like, you're getting into the mindset of your kind of ideal customer or client. And you had said like fear is popping up. And I think that that's kind of ultimately something that we do as business owners is we get a better sense of a fear or a challenge that someone that we're serving has. And our goal is to, ease that fear, solve a problem, address a pain point. And so I kind of wanted to tie that all together because I thought that was really nicely done in kind of your response. On the virtual event that you're planning, is there something that is now possible because you've moved into this virtual space in May that wouldn't have been possible if you were moving forward with an in-person event?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that keeps people from coming to a live event is the travel, right? So I had somebody from, I think it was Singapore, who reached out to me and said, I'm coming to this event now, and I would have never come. I would have never traveled over there for a 2-day event. But now that you're doing it, the whole thing virtually, I'm going to attend this event. I've wanted to attend one of your events for, the guy said, like 3.5 years. So it opens up much bigger possibilities for people, right? And there are just people who, we all have ways that we learn, right? Whether it's kinesthetically, whether we're visual, whether we're more auditory, whatever. And I think this is one of those things that opens up. There are people who are afraid to fly. There are people who, don't like crowds, or, all sorts of people now have the ability to say, ooh, I can sit in the comfort of my own home. Now it has disadvantages as well, right? But I can sit in the comfort of my own home and get this same information in a way that is much more comfortable for me. I'm going to do that.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. I mean, I think that it's, it's really different for a lot of folks who are used to, especially people who've centered their businesses solely around an event where people are in a room and together, like real time. And this adjustment, I think once the kind of shock or the kind of discomfort of change, like you said, kind of subsides, I think that people, the sand will settle, the water becomes clear, and you can kind of take stock and say, whoa, this is different, and I can still see a way forward. And I think we'll get there. I think we're still in the snow globe, and it's still being really.
Well, yeah. And I think one of the things that makes us as small business owners and entrepreneurs is that we do have the ability to make those changes, right? And not get stuck in the quandary of things. And so I think that's one of the advantages that we have. I've seen and heard a lot of people who are employees talking about this shift of, oh my gosh, all of a sudden I'm working from home, right? Well, I was like, what's the big deal? And then as I thought about it, I'm like, Diane, you have an office, you have a desk, you have two 26-inch monitors and, speakers, and you've got everything set up in an office where that's work, right? These people have that too, but it's somewhere where they have to travel 20 or 30 minutes or an hour or whatever every day, right? Yeah. Now, all of a sudden, they're home, which means they're sitting at a kitchen table with their laptop. And the kids are running around and so it has been that adjustment. And I think having the ability to look at that, because I was like, what's the big deal? They're working from home now. You can wear whatever you want, and you can eat whatever you want, and you can, all of that. And it was like, oh, we live in that whole little world of our own. But I think, again, as small business owners, medium-sized business owners, we have so many advantages, and we have the ability to do things that so many other people just don't have the ability, the thought process, the wherewithal, the resources to do during these times, because, we don't live in the same box.
Yeah.
We don't live in a box.
Right. Absolutely. And I think on the topic of advantages, I think this is a good segue into asking you, because you are a part of the LGBT family and you have lived experiences within, how do you think being a member of the LGBT community allows you to stand out as the business owner, the successful business owner that you are today? I think we've been through so much as a community. If we go back to during the whole AIDS epidemic, the AIDS crisis, whatever the right word is, we have the ability, I think, to kind of flourish through these things because we have been through it, and we live with, diversity, and we live with the shadow, if you will, sometimes of, discrimination and those kinds of things. But I think personally for me, I think the thing that allows me to stand out is that sometimes I am the different voice, right? I sometimes have a little bit of a different view on things. But I think the fact that I have been around for so long and made it through so many changes, and I just keep, I just keep coming back, right? You do that ebb and flow thing. And I think the fact that I've been around for so long, that I bring a different perspective to things, and that I have so many experiences in so many industries. And I think the other piece is that everything that I do is customized and not cookie cutter. And yet it's still within reach of pretty much everybody, because I'm not the cookie cutter person. I'm not like, here's the one program that you have to get from me. Somebody wants to work with me, I'll look at them and say, well, let's figure this out. Let's figure out how we can do this and make a positive for both of us. How, I can help you, and how I can make money doing it, and you can make more money, and we can grow together. And that's really the piece, right? The best explanation anybody has ever given of Diane is a Mack truck full of marshmallows. And, so if you can picture that. And so yeah,
sometimes
that's an awesome analogy.
What you see on the out, and it's very true, right? What you see on the outside may be a little bit of this tough exterior, and yet my heart of hearts is that I love working with business owners and entrepreneurs, and that's where my heart is, and especially inside of our community. there's nothing that I wouldn't do, and I treat your business as if it were my own. So it's like having a business partner without having to pay a business partner's salary.
Yeah. I think the Mack truck full of marshmallows makes it like it just kind of like with words, it's like the resiliency that you have, you're the resilient empath, I see that and how you showed up today on the interview, what you offered. And I think that adaptability comes from, like you said, the resiliency of being through, just being a member of the LGBT community and all of the joy and the amazing accomplishments that we've seen over our lifetimes. And also right in this moment, still the challenges that are before us. And yet I think hope is eternal. We see what's possible. And I think like part of, what I'm hearing from you as I listen is, your approach to customizing, to working with your clients. It's, recognizing, and I think that maybe this is something that we glean from our experiences within the Rainbow family is not making assumptions by who's standing before us, right? And so I think that translates really nicely in what you do for your clients. So I want to thank you for being on the show today. This has been fantastic. I have two last questions, two parting questions for you. And the first is, knowing that there are folks tuning into this show right now who still have that burning desire in their heart of hearts to step forward and be, the future entrepreneurs within our Rainbow family, what advice would you have for them right now in this moment, with the dreams that they have for being business owners and to do good in the world? How do you inspire them right now in this moment?
I would say go for it. Don't get into the question that whole imposter syndrome thing, because I think it's that's what keeps us from moving forward. Who am I? Why would they want this? I'm not an expert. We go into that mode, right? You are an expert. If you know 10% more than someone else about a topic, you're an expert to them. And there's always someone that you can help. The other thing I would say to you is that people are watching. And I don't mean that in a creepy sort of way, but people are watching what you're doing. People are watching how you're reacting and responding to things, whether you want them to or not, and you're making an impact on their lives. And so why not do that in a bigger way? Why not do that in a way that if it's your desire, right, that can be seen, that can make even a bigger impact. I love acronyms. And so one of my acronyms is RIPPLES. And that stands for repetition in place produces little effects somewhere. Okay, so think about that pebble that you drop in the water, right? And the ripples go out. Repetition in place produces little effects somewhere. I gave you the example earlier of Casey Graham. Mm-hmm. Casey still to this day, almost 10 years later, gives me credit for where he is in his life. His wife's name is Casey. And he always talks about how his wife Casey, talks about this. And I think to myself, wow, the impact that I had by working with one person. He's literally working with hundreds of thousands of business owners now, because he's working with, let's say, 100 who are working with 100, who are working with 100, who are working with 100. And guess what? I touched all of those people by touching him. And I think that's the piece for me, is because there was a time when I said, gosh, who are you, Diane? You're not a doctor. You're not, can you really change the world? Yeah, I really changed the world by working with that one guy. Yeah.
And that's just one of many, many clients that you've worked with. I love that. I love it. I think that I'm a fan of acronyms. So RIPPLES, I'm remembering it. Repetition in place produces little effects somewhere. I think that that's really fantastic advice for folks right now who have that fire in their belly. And this is the right time. This is the time to really pursue it and take a risk. Yeah. I love it. I love it, Diane. So I'm sure that there are folks right now wanting to be a part of your business community. So where's the best place that we can find you online and learn more about what you're doing for business owners like us?
Sure. The main website, which is old, you'll have to forgive me. I'm going to redo it. This is at some point this year. It's completemarketingsystems.com. That's the easy way. You can get me. There's an 866 number. There's the email address, and on any of the social media, you can just look for my name, Diane Conklin. I'm there. It's pretty consistent throughout. If you want to get in touch with me, you can shoot me a quick email at info@completemarketingsystems. Love to talk to anybody. Love to help anybody. Love to see if I can make that impact in that's so important to me in the world. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Diane. You are definitely doing what you do best. And I really appreciate your time today, especially in this moment in time that we're all in. Definitely inspired me. And I'm sure that you've inspired a lot of our listeners. So thank you for being on the show. And for all of the Outboss community, thank you for tuning in this week. We will be back next Tuesday morning, same time, same place. For now, definitely mark your calendars for every Friday, definitely through the month of April, May, maybe June and July. We're going to be hosting office hours, 2:30 p.m. every Friday. And I hope to see you there. We're going to talk a lot about how you're doing, how your business is doing, and ways that we can support each other. Because like what Diane said during this episode, community is everything. And I think that is one of our collective superpowers within the Rainbow family. So thank you so much for being your authentic selves 100% of the time. And I will see you next week.